Because anyway, CAT is not about cracking the most difficult questions.
Right.
I think it is about identifying the easier ones and solving them. So I think it's more about confidence. Engineers somehow in maths, whether they are good at it or not, they are confident that they're good.
How do you decide if the question is worth attempting? You look at a question, how do you make that choice?
Do I know where do I exactly want to start this question from? If that part I know that I want to start the question from here, I will most probably look at solving that question. So for me, I believe CAT is not such a big test of speed as everybody has made it to be.
You can't try to run a marathon on the first day, right?
Obviously,
so your speed is not going to be there, but accuracy is more of having the right form.
Yeah.
That if your running form is right, you will be able to run a marathon one day without getting injured in the whole journey. Hi everyone. In today's interaction with Amit sir, we are going to tackle a question or rather a set of questions that a lot of students have. That is 5 months enough to prepare for Quant, and how exactly should I be preparing? So we have received a lot of queries from students over all these months that how do I prepare from now on if I am starting my preparation and so on. So we're going to understand how to prepare over the next 5 months. We're going to understand the test preparation strategy. So let's get started. Hi Amit sir.
Hi Prasad.
So let's start with the first question that we have received from our students. And the question is 5 months enough when I look at the time frame? Is it going to be sufficient for me to prepare?
So definitely depends on what is your level of maths, where are you, how well have you done with Quant in school. Otherwise, also very frankly, 5 months is a decent amount of time. I would not say it is the best amount of time to prepare, but especially if you have finished your graduation and if you're not doing any job or something right now, 5 months is a pretty decent amount of time. If you go through even the basics and start well, I think you should be able to easily do that. And following up on that, Prasad, what are your thoughts? My most common question which comes across when students ask us, sir, my basics of maths is very weak. I have not done very well in maths in school. How do I do and what is the strategy I should follow?
So sir, I think what happens with a lot of students, and all of us have experienced that, is students tend to label themselves, right? They put a label,
right,
that I am not good at math or I am weak at math. My math score in 10th standard was so much, and that is why there's a definition that I have about my ability in maths.
Right.
I think what students need to understand is, let's stop putting those labels first of all.
Okay.
Right? That I
That's
have
nice.
to always think of that this is something that I can do, and there is a path that I need to follow to get better at it. And I think that is true for everything in life, whether you are talking about Quant.
I think it's
anything
just my feeling is the same as these commerce students, especially. I think they were very good in maths till 12th standard. Most of them who've taken maths in 12th standard are pretty good at maths till 12th standard. That 3 years of gap with mathematics kind of makes them nervous and they feel that they're not good enough or whatever. And they always have this myth in their mind that engineers will beat them easily at maths. And I'm saying it, we both have seen a lot of engineers also not doing well, and that's a myth which a lot of people have. So I think you should not really worry too much. Start with the basics, because anyway, CAT is not about cracking the most difficult questions.
Right.
I think it is about identifying the easier ones and solving them, rather than cracking the most difficult ones.
So taking a cue from that, sir, does it have something to do with your background? So if let's say you are an engineer or a non-engineer, right? What's the difference between at an aspirant level? Do you see any differences?
So I think it's more about confidence. Engineers somehow in maths, whether they are good at it or not, they are confident that they're good. I think they have this in their mind that maths they will be able to crack easily. Because also they see a lot of their friends cracking the GRE maths very easily, but they don't understand that the difference in level between the GRE maths and the CAT maths is very high.
Right.
And for CAT maths, they will need that extra effort to be taken. It's not going to be very straightforward. In fact, we've seen so many times there are topics like, and important topics like simple interest, compound interest, where a commerce student will do much better than an engineer. Somehow the engineer does not understand the topic of interest only. I don't know. So I don't think so. It's a matter of this. Even commerce students can do well at maths, and engineers might do badly also. Not that all engineers will do badly. There are a lot of engineers who will do well also.
Right. So it kind of reminded me of one comment that appeared on one of our videos. So on this channel, we have a lot of videos of past year questions where we have solved the entire paper. In fact, some of the videos you are also there.
Right.
So there was a comment from somebody, and the comment said that after JEE, they are asking these kind of questions in the CAT. Right. So there are students, of course, who have taken JEE.
Yeah.
So there is that confidence also that maybe I've done a lot of math, but the thing is, that doesn't mean that every engineer will do well.
So I have noticed that those engineering students who have done well at JEE, normally tend to do well at CAT maths. But that doesn't mean all engineers. There are a lot of engineers who reached maybe not the very good colleges like the IITs, NITs and all. They are the ones who still don't do as good at maths. And maybe there are a lot of commerce students with a very good score who actually went for a BBA. And also because they wrote a similar exam in form of, say, the NPAT or the IP Mat. And if they start preparing 1.5 years after that, they tend to do well at CAT maths also.
But again, so on the topic that we were discussing, right, that there is a possibility that a lot of students will have some gap.
Okay.
And because of which they are afraid that maybe I'll not be able to do it. So how should they approach?
So see, if let's take it in two parts. If it is a 5-month strategy, that is, we are looking at CAT 25 student who's here right now, I would suggest start with the basics. Go through all the concept videos. If you're an IMS student, we know we have around 150 to 160 concept videos. Each video between an average length of 5 minutes. So there's a lot of data, a lot of content available there. In example with concepts, with a lot of examples. And I have seen students really, it's really helping the students. Once you've done the concepts well, then go to your class exercise. Same what we spoke earlier about, that after this, go to the class exercise, practice exercise, benchmarking test. You will tend to do well. That should be your strategy. Don't look for shortcuts. I'll be very frank. I don't believe in CAT maths shortcuts work as much as it is being told. There are a lot of shortcuts available. Yes, there are shortcuts available, but those shortcuts, you will do well only once you're aware of all the concepts. I have never seen anybody making a shortcut without knowing the concepts.
Yeah, so I think let's talk about the next question, which is, and this is more on actually solving the question. So how do you decide if the question is worth attempting? You look at a question, how do you make that choice?
Okay. Normally, I put it into one very important thing for me, I think, which all of us have sat down and we have discussed it, is the path to solution. Do you see that in your mind? When you look at a question and you say, and more than path to solution, the first step, do I know where do I exactly want to start this question from? If that part I know that I want to start the question from here, and these are the next 3-4 steps. Maybe I don't know the last step, that's okay. But I know the first 3-4 steps. I will most probably look at solving that question. Versus if I feel that it's like, I don't know where to start this question exactly, that's the question I never take up. Even after so many years of experience solving so many thousands of questions, even on videos or whatever. But if I look at a question and I say I don't know the first step, I normally tend to leave it and move on to the next question in a test scenario. What about you? You've been also one of those who's done well at all these tests. What is your strategy for such situation?
Yeah, so first is to do things in round, right? So when you are actually attempting the test, right, it is not that you see a question and you have to answer it, then only you'll move forward. Unlike NMAT, I think NMAT is the only test where that happens, speaking of the Indian exams.
Right.
So you have an element of choice and you have to use it properly.
Exactly.
So when you have so many questions, you basically just see that, okay, this question, I have to categorize the question, and that is one methodology that we have.
So you're talking about the ABC analysis.
The ABC analysis. That is it something that I'll do right away? I know it. Is this something that I'll maybe do it later? Or is it something that I'm not going to do today?
Exactly.
Right? So I think all of us also have our favorite areas. So personally, I like numbers, arithmetic a lot. I like algebra a lot. Geometry not so much.
So I'm exactly opposite. I'll be one of those who will look at geometry first and not look at algebra so much. Maybe it is just my whole background, because I have taught a lot of school and college maths also for many years. Maybe all our people don't know it, but I've taught a lot of school and college maths for many years, and hence geometry was one of my favorite areas. So that is continued over here in CAT also.
Yeah, so I tend to choose questions from my comfort zone in my first round. So I know for sure that, okay, I'll be able to handle this.
Right.
And that comes with practice. So as you said, a lot of people run behind shortcuts, but then shortcuts are applicable only to a certain type of questions.
Right.
And the wording has to be exactly like that. Exactly. It's like that a boy standing at the top of the building and then dropping a ball, right? And it rebounds. There is a shortcut.
Yeah.
But then unless you know the sum of infinity is a upon 1 minus r and all of those things, the long cut, you will not appreciate the shortcut. So that is why, again, my take is very similar to you. And speaking of selection, choose what you're comfortable with, and that will come with practice. So after you've solved 100 questions of numbers, maybe you know that, okay, these are the kind of questions that I like. These are the questions where I'll do normally well. But if you see something which is too much outside your comfort zone,
Okay.
right? So generally, for example, if I get something which is very complicated P&C problem, too many conditions, maybe I think I'll miss one of those conditions. I will not jump into it. So then that becomes my round 2 or round 3 kind of a
So a
question.
good thing about PNC, which you said, again, when I started teaching for CAT, I always thought that PNC was the area which I would do well at. Because again, having a lot of K-12 maths, I taught a lot of K-12 maths. But you realize that that's a topic which has lesser rate of accuracy. Compared to arithmetic or something, PNC will always have lesser accuracy. And hence, over the period of years, you realize that those are the questions which you tend to skip.
Yeah.
So, okay, now if we move on to the next question. So, what's your advice to someone who knows the formulas but freezes when it comes to the exam situation or applying it that to a question, especially in an exam situation?
Okay, so sir, I think I'm going to borrow something that Alex Honnold once said. He's one of my favorite athletes and one of the greatest climbers of all time. And what he does is he practices something so often that the fear goes away. Right? So nice. He has climbed the El Capitan without rope, but he didn't climb the first attempt without rope. Right? So he climbed it multiple times, and just to understand what the position of hand should be and where are the spaces where you can hold for longer period and so on. So unless you do something multiple times, you're not going to feel confident about it. Okay. So a lot of times that brain freeze happens is because you haven't done it enough number of times. Okay. And you start solving it thinking that you know it, and then somewhere you will go and get stuck.
So are you advising doing similar questions? I'm assuming you're advising doing similar questions many times, because one thing which I advise is never practice the same question again. Students might just mistake it to practicing the same question again.
No, so what I'm trying to say is you have to master the concept.
Okay.
Because if you have mastered that, even a little bit of variation you'll be able to handle. But if you don't know the concept thoroughly, you have just, let's say, mugged the formula. You don't know exactly the logic behind that particular formula.
Right.
You might end up forgetting it. For example, I think volume formulas, right? When you look at in mensuration especially, there is a logic as to how things are getting derived.
Right.
If you have understood that, it will be very easy for you to solve questions.
I'm sure, like as you're saying, volume of cylinder, people look at it as pi r square h. I don't know how many people are still aware that it is area of base into height.
Right.
Once they are able to look at that area of base into height, they are then able to solve a lot more questions.
And even if you forget one formula, you might be able to derive the formula.
True. And so similarly, I have always explained this with the number of factors formula. Because if you know the number of factors properly, formula properly, you'll be able to get the number of odd factors, number of even factors, all those things you'll be able to get much more easily.
Yeah. So my point is to build, do something in a repetitive manner. So it's not solving the same question multiple times.
Right.
But it is understanding the concept and doing, let's say, 3 or 4 questions around that concept, so that now I'm comfortable, that now I know I'm confident about this particular concept. You give me any question, I'll be able to solve it.
That's
so,
nice.
For example, personally for me, when I was preparing as a student, right, numbers was my favorite area, and mixtures allegation for some reason I used to really like. So you give me any question of mixtures allegation, that used to be like the first question that I'll jump onto, because I know I have done enough questions of that. And I think once that comfort comes in, it becomes easy for everybody.
What Prasad is saying also means, like when you look at topics on averages, a lot of people don't realize that averages also can be solved so wonderfully through allegations.
Right.
All the average questions where, say, 2 people joined in the class, then the average went up, went down, whatever, those can also be done so beautifully through allegations. So once you've understood allegation, then you'll be able to apply this over here also.
Yeah. And I think the brain freeze happens, right? So all of us are humans.
Yeah.
There is a test pressure situation, so it's going to happen. But then the moment you're reliving that experience of SimCATs again and again, over a period of time, you will develop the mental stamina and the strength that is required to come out of those situations. That, okay, I'm getting stuck, it's okay. That it's not a question of life or death. I just have to move to some other question, shift the perspective a little bit, and I'll be able to find the solution.
So based on that, I also have one more advice, which I give especially for Quant, because it's the last section. In the CAT, it is the third section, right? So there can obviously be stamina issues. People have kind of already written 2 sections, so there can be a stamina issue. So this is something which I had discussed with one of my earlier colleagues and all that, is that start, whenever you're practicing, try and practice 4 sections. So you write the whole mock and keep one section test ready at the end of it as the fourth section. So, it's like when the finishing line comes, you're most vulnerable there. Now, if your third section is not going to end and you have one more section to write, you'll be much more present in the quant section, and I think you'll start doing well. And it's like, something which I had heard earlier. If you want to play a T20, have the stamina to play a one day. If you want to play a one day, have the stamina to play a test match.
Right.
And so on. Something like that will help over here, definitely.
Okay. Sir, taking it forward on speed and accuracy. So, a lot of students chase speed, right? That I want to attempt more and more questions because then potentially I can score more. Or some students are very conservative. I'll attempt only 5 questions, get those correct. So, how do they find the balance?
So, for me, I believe CAT is not such a big test of speed as everybody has made it to be. I think it should be a test of more accuracy. And also, over the next 4 or 5 months, I think if you keep your focus on accuracy, so if you've decided that I will not let my accuracy drop below 85%, especially in quant, where it is possible, I would always recommend that it's okay. Say you're a month of June today. If you're attempting only around 5-6 questions today, it is okay. But are you getting them most of the time right? Next month, try and take it to 8. The month after that, try and take it to 10. And by November, even if you can take it to 15-16 questions, attempting 15-16 questions on the day of the CAT, with say around 85% accuracy, I think you would have done well.
Yeah.
You will definitely do very good on the day of the CAT. So my thing is, bad accuracy is something which once creeps in, it is very difficult to remove. But over a period of time, you can keep improving on speed. If your accuracy is good, you will keep improving on speed. But if that's my logic, that you will not be able to improve your accuracy later. You can't say, okay, let me work on 50% accuracy now. In October, November, I'll go and work it to 90%. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think just while we were discussing this, I thought of this as a running analogy that you can try to run a marathon on the first day, right?
Obviously,
so your speed is not going to be there, but accuracy is more of having the right form.
Yeah.
That if your running form is right, you will be able to run a marathon one day without getting injured in the whole journey.
So for all those who don't know, Prasad already runs a lot of marathons and all that. So he's a pretty good runner. So I think that really comes good from there. So anybody who looks at, and I'm sure anybody who's played any other sport will understand what we're trying to say over here.
Right.
Let's come to the favorite area. What topics is the highest weightage in CAT? And what should a student look at? What is the hierarchy you should look at? Is it arithmetic first, after that algebra, geometry, what?
I think there's a variation of this question that all of us have received in the past.
So
what are the topics that I can skip? So with 5 months to CAT, the advice is very simple. Don't skip anything.
Okay.
Right? You have to build the basic across all the areas because you never know where the questions are going to come from.
True.
So I will definitely spend initially a lot of time on arithmetic, considering that is one of the.
So let's say if I want to keep the last 2 months roughly for test taking, and I have approximately 100 days to preparation.
Right.
How would you break those 100 days?
Yeah. So considering the weightage of arithmetic, you need to spend more time there, right? So there are more topics as well. So somewhere around 40 days. Now, I'm not saying that the initial 40 days you do only arithmetic.
Right.
We are saying out of those 100 days, roughly 40% of your effort is going to be on arithmetic. And then remaining on numbers, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, modern math, let's say 15 days. So you can spend equally, or depending on your comfort zone, you can maybe increase somewhere, decrease somewhere a little bit. I think that can always be done. What we have seen in the last couple of years is the arithmetic, algebra, geometry, right? The ARG, as we say, arithmetic, algebra, geometry. If you have done these three things properly, you will be in a position to handle the CAT.
So, in fact, one more thing which I always add over here to the students is, that when you were preparing for 10th and 12th exam, you were always told, okay, focus on your weaker topics, get them out of the way. What I tell people in CAT is, focus on your strength areas and keep sharpening them, because those are the areas which will get you the good scores.
Right.
And manage your weak areas. You don't need to go, say if you're weak at geometry, you don't need to get into it and do each and every concept in detail and do everything in detail. It's okay. Just learn to manage geometry. So for example, like if I was looking at topics myself, I would manage PNC. Maybe I would manage functions, maxima, minima. Those are the topics I would manage. While other topics would be the ones which I would sharpen and keep doing better. So, again, I don't say modern maths, don't do it at all. So for me, sequence and series is a very important area which I want to do it well. Logarithms, like I'm now tired of speaking about it. I must have spoken about it in every quant video. Logarithms is one area, everybody should do it well. I think it takes one proper day to do it, and you will get definitely one question on the day of the cat. Worth it. Something like that. If you break up your focus into that, I think that will be good.
Yeah, I think logarithms, even I completely agree, because there's one cat year where, in the old format, 34 questions, there were 5 questions from logarithms, right?
Okay.
And if you are somebody who has skipped the entire logs, right, you're basically just fighting with the remaining questions. There's no
True.
scope then for you to really maximize
And
your
even
score.
recently, even with the new format, I have seen once 3 questions. In one same slot, I had seen 3 questions. So that will always happen. So that's one area. Also because people make it to be a very difficult topic, and I always want to. And this is I'm telling all mentors also. Try and relate your logarithms topic with indices.
Correct.
So that the child will feel a little bit less pressurized. The way you teach indices, teach logarithms in the same way, and I'm sure he'll do well.
So the next question that I want to ask you is, so if a student has already completed all class exercises or modules, let's say, so some of the non-IMS students watching this, they may not know the exact flow. So basically we have a class exercise, there's a pre-class content available, there's class exercise, practice exercise, benchmarking test.
Right.
So if somebody has completed the class exercises, then what should they do next? So the remaining 5 months, what should be the focus?
So first, I'm assuming you've done class, practice, benchmarking tests. We also have our AI-based questions and all. So I'm assuming they've generated those questions. The next what we come up with is masterclass, which will be starting in the next couple of months. The masterclass series has a lot of new questions, a lot of new concepts being added there. And so masterclass will actually take you to the next level. If our class exercise takes a child to 85, 90 percentile, the masterclass then covers up the next journey from 90 to 99. Is what masterclass will do. Masterclass, sectional test, and obviously very, very importantly, mocks. I somehow feel that students are not writing enough mocks.
Right.
If out of the 40, if somebody is there who says, I have written all of them, I'm sure he or she will do well. So that's the main thing. Write all mocks. Reach a time limit where you have enough time to write the mocks. Don't keep it for the last 1 month or whatever. At least 75, 80 days. Before 75, 80 days, you should start writing mocks very seriously. Even though we have already started mocks, but I'm just telling that.
Yeah, and sir, as a follow-up to that, sometimes it may also appear for somebody that there's so much content to be done.
Okay.
So then how should I prioritize? Should I try and do everything? Because for some students, it may not be possible.
So this was asked to me by somebody who's just started a new batch. Starting a new batch now in the month of June, July. They always feel, sir, how do I cope up? So my suggestion to them would be a slightly different one, maybe a suggestion which everybody might not agree with, is that if you are not sure, try and keep up the pace of the class. Be with the class all the time, even if you're not solving 100% of the material of that. So for example, if the class exercise is 40 questions, it's okay if you have solved 25, 30. Move ahead. Same thing with the practice exercise. Out of 20, have you solved 12, 13? Taking the benchmarking test, not repeatedly with the AI-based questions and all that. Move on to the next chapter. So when you have a second round, you will need a second round of revision. Somewhere in September, October, you will need 1 round of revision, at least not for all chapters. At that time, you can finish the balance questions, is my suggestion. But if you keep a backlog, you will realize in August, September, you will feel that the backlog is so much. And the first thing which will come in your mind is, okay, let me look at the next year's CAT. That should not happen. If you've done all the topics, even if not thoroughly, you can come back in September, revise the remaining questions, and move ahead. Is my suggestion. As I said, it is a suggestion which everybody might not agree with, but that's what I have a feeling. So, Prasad, similarly, in fact, I was doing a session recently and somebody had sent the question on the Google Forms, is how does a repeater prepare for CAT? What is his pattern of preparation compared to one, assuming he's done well in the first level, he's worked everything out, he had done all the concepts, taken the CAT, didn't do very well, how does he prepare?
So generally, I think there are 2-3 kinds of aspirants, right? One is somebody who really prepared quant last time and didn't do that well, right? Then there are people who didn't prepare well last time, right?
Okay.
So I would suggest that you first analyze what went wrong in last year's performance.
Okay.
Was it the issue, the content, or the application, or did you prepare enough in the first place or not, right? So if you hadn't prepared, then expecting a very high result last year would have been the wrong assumption to make.
True.
So analyze that mistake first of all and figure out what topics maybe you're not done.
Okay.
And start working on these topics, right? The other thing is, which we have discussed earlier as well, is how the approach shifts when you are repeater. So a first time aspirant is basically going from module, which is the courseware, to your mocks. The repeater is basically going from mocks to courseware, because you already done one round of your courseware. And even though you may not have done it entirely, you have an understanding of what each of the topic means, right? Basically, you know, okay, that algebra, these are the things that are there. So now you take a mock, and if you have made, let's say, some mistakes, you have not selected the right questions, or you got some questions wrong, you go back to your books and do, let's say, at least 20-25 questions of that particular topic before you take the next SimCAT.
So something like, people feel that they know a topic, like time, speed, distance. Let's take an example. Some of the people say, okay, I know time, speed, distance well. But finally, when they look at the questions, they're not able to solve them. So you advise that they go back only to that topic, say, figure out time, speed, distance well for them, and then come back to the mocks.
Right, and basically look at it very critically. So now you know that, okay, these are the major areas, these are the subtopics, these are the concepts. But even after that, you're making the same kind of mistakes, right? Then it is not going to help you. So last year also, let's say you're falling in love with a question and sitting on it for 10 minutes. This time also you're doing the same thing.
Right.
So you cannot expect a vastly different result compared to what you got.
True.
So that is where you have to spend your time and energy, I would say.
So I think the repeaters also, because they have a lot more on the line.
Right.
So it's a very good advice Prasad has given. I think you should really look at it very critically. Start analyzing the mocks a lot better than what you did last year. I think a lot of people make this mistake that they don't really analyze the mocks. So coming to that part is, how do you really analyze a mock? What are the things you should do after a mock? People say, okay, 40 mocks, 2 hours each, it's only 80 hours. I will easily able to do it. So, but they forget that analyzing the mock is equally important. What will be your advice around that?
Yeah, so the first thing is, once you have taken a mock, take a break for some time. Let's say maybe 30 minutes of break, do something else. Because you have exhausted a lot of your mental capacity in that sense. And then come back and start going through the entire paper, right? Okay. And this is applicable
So you advise it immediately the same day?
Better if you can do it on the same day.
Great.
If not, maybe next day, as early as possible. It's like medicine dosage, right?
Yeah.
If you skip a dose, they just say that take the next one, whatever, as early as possible.
Right.
So you try and do all the questions again, and this is true for VRC, DLR, QA. You go through the video solutions on SimCATs. For the SimCATs, we have video solutions, and that's a best way to learn what is the best way to solve a question.
Right.
Because you want somebody who has scored in the 100 percentile or really done well on across the test, to figure out that this is the best method to approach a particular problem.
Right.
Now, you may not have solved using that method. Maybe you took a long cut. So now you've learned something. So I have to look at SimCATs not only as a test taking exercise or checking my content exercise, but also to learn new things. Yeah. And I think that is where a lot of students make mistakes, because what they think is, I solved this question, I got it right.
So I don't need to look at
I'm not going to look at the solution. But if you look at the solution, even if you increase it, the pace to 1.5x or 2x, because again, that attention span issue, you do that. But let's say you learn one new thing today, and that will come handy when you actually go for the test. So go through all the questions again, go through the video solutions, and then look at the p-values, because p-values are going to tell you whether your question selection was correct or not.
True.
So a lot of things can happen. Maybe you chose the correct set of questions, but you're taking too much time, in which case you have to improve your speed.
Right.
The other thing that can happen is your question selection itself is faulty. So then you have to again go back and figure out, why did I choose this particular question? Maybe I misread it. If you got something wrong, maybe you miscalculated it. Maybe you took some unnecessary risk in some situation, right? So all of these are learnings. And at a cumulative level, once you start putting them down and you make a note or a journal where you're writing these things, that becomes your go-to source.
So from this journal thing, the notes of the journal, what I've been advising students is, maybe, 10 years back, I used to tell them make a note or a journal or whatever. Today, I tell them just make a Word file and start putting those questions into that Word file, which you felt were very good. Now, when you look at a question, so many times you feel, wow, the examiner has made a good question over here. That good question doesn't mean that it's a difficult question. It's a question which had a couple of tricks. There was a trap. You were able to spot that trap and you learned a couple of new things. That's definitely a question to go into it. You found a question very difficult. Put it there and mark it in red that this is the question you need to leave. When you see a similar question next time, you need to learn to leave such questions. So those are the things I would say. if you've done around 4 questions per mock, and if you've done all the mocks well, and throughout your journey of preparation, if you have put around 200 questions there, for the last 10 days, you have really good material to revise, which will not, because anyway, we advise in the last 10 days not to do something new. So the last 10 days, there'll be something really good to revise, something which they can go back to, look at all those small traps which were there, which they had fallen for, which they had not fallen for, everything. And kind of, it's more those last 10 days, it will make you feel good and you'll be well prepared for the day of the CAT. That's my whole logic of making this journal. So then they know exactly what to do in the last 10 days.
So we are almost reaching the end of the video. So just 2 questions. One is, there are a lot of students who will say that speakers, both of us, we like maths.
Right.
But what if I don't like maths? Right. So I hate maths or I don't like maths. So what's the advice for such students?
So first of all, we had right at the start said don't label yourself. But if you still are there, I don't like maths. I have met so many students. When my son was in the 10th standard, a lot of his friends used to come to me for small helps. Uncle, I don't like maths. How do I look at it? And there's so many such people. Very frankly, you don't have a choice. You come for an exam like CAT, you have to crack maths. There is no choice, right? So let's start liking it. At least start looking at area-specific things and say, okay, I will at least do well at arithmetic. Arithmetic is a good 40-45% of a paper. I've done this analysis lately, where if you look at all arithmetic questions, it is a good 40-45% of a paper. If you, with arithmetic, even if you can get one good area in your pocket, whether it's geometry, algebra, whatever, it will help you clear the cutoffs comfortably. Start getting there. From other areas, as Prasad said, do level A questions well. So today also, if I see a permutation combination of question, even at this level, if I see a PNC question of level B, also I tend to skip it. Because I know that it's a trap. The accuracy will be low. So start going for level. But my whole journey, the important part is never miss out a level A question. Always get the level A questions right, because that is what is going to help you clear the cutoff. It is not about those difficult questions. In fact, so many times students come up with very difficult questions in doubts. Sir, I saw this question somewhere. It is a very difficult question. Very good. It's a very difficult question. Leave it. Learn to leave such things. Unless it is a very good concept. Otherwise, learn to leave it. And that is my advice for even people who are weak at maths. It's okay to leave some stuff, but do the stuff which you've done, like topics like arithmetic, which you've done well, do them really well, that you're able to crack the questions that day.
I think the question thing that you mentioned, right, from other sources or whatever, students will bring a question and ask the mentors. So whenever that used to happen to me, my question used to be, tell me how many times similar question or concept has been asked on the CAT.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it would happen that that concept has never been asked.
Never been asked.
Some random arbitrary concept from JE, but that is not going to be asked on the CAT, so let's not get there.
Yeah, I'm sure that happened a lot after CAT 23. 1 year when the CAT was slightly difficult, and then suddenly everybody wanted to do very difficult questions. And then suddenly CAT took a complete U-turn in 24 and the paper was very easy.
So sir, one last question. Let's say somebody didn't watch the whole video, right, and has jumped to that last thing, this section. So what would be your one advice or maybe 1 or 2 things that students should do over the next 5 months?
Don't run behind shortcuts. They're not going to help you. Concepts, class exercise, practice exercise, benchmarking test. Even if you do this much, you will reach close to 90 percentile. Even if you don't want to go for the difficult stuff, obviously you will have to do your PYQs and mocks. Right. But even if you don't want to do the master class and everything, it's okay. But know your concepts well. Means, very frankly, and I have created these concepts, so I know what I've done. With each and every concept, we put down examples. If everybody goes through each and every concept with each and every example there, I'm telling you, you'll be able to reach 60-65 percentile in the CAT paper. So do that much well, reach a particular level and work ahead slowly. There is no magic mantra where you're going to reach 99 directly. Don't fall for all those shortcuts, or those fancy video titles on YouTube, 50 shortcuts for Quant and all that. Don't fall for those shortcuts. Doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think just to summarize the discussion that we had, right, there's no secret ingredient. It's just
secret ingredient.
Right? It's just you sitting at one place, solving questions, repeating that process multiple times, and reaching a situation where you can comfortably handle a test like CAT.
I agree.
That's it. Yeah, so I think we had a very beautiful conversation on quant. It
Yeah.
was fun chatting with Amit sir.
Our favorite area for both of us anyway, so I think we really enjoyed it also.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. And,
Thank you, Prasad.
And I hope this session has helped all the students. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do it as soon as possible. We'll hopefully see you soon in some or the other video. Bye. Take care.